Hope you enjoyed that narcissistic intro of all of my photographs. Hey, my name's Eric if you don't know who I am, and my name's also Eric if you do know who I am. I have this scar on my face right now because my daughter clawed my cheek. Dad scars. All right, enough of the dad jokes. You guys came here for input on how to make creative portraits, something that I'm very passionate about, something that I really love. So I just kind of wanted to give you a breakdown of what my thought processes are and what my inspiration is for creative portraiture and how I go about it. If you're unfamiliar with my background, I was an educator. I was a public school teacher for the first 3 years of my adult life after college, 2013 to 2016. And it was during standardized testing that I just became very, very bored. They asked us to just sit there and watch the students take tests, and I was kind of a rebel. So I took 2 sheets of computer paper and just started thinking of all of the photo and video ideas that I might be able to do, creative things I might be able to make that year. And I filled both of those pages front and back and was able to accomplish half of those things that next year in shooting 15 to 20 weddings around that time. All of that to say, that kind of set me on this trajectory of finding my own creative voice and made me realize that if you want to be creative and intentional about your portraiture and being creative with your photography, you need to be intentional about thinking creative ideas and writing them down. Whether that's actually physically writing or on an iPad or on a keyboard, doesn't really matter. Just getting those ideas outside of your head and onto some sort of readable thing. So some inspiration that I took in my early years, I fanboyed this guy named Ben Heisch really hard. He shot my wedding. At that time, he was shooting a lot of double exposures and using a tilt shift lens, and I was kind of copycatting in some sense. But really, after practicing some of those things and developing kind of my own style of doing it, I kind of started creating my own personal and unique voice with using those 2 tools and started to really lean into doing double exposures and tilt shift. He also does a lot of film photography, and I kind of jumped on that as well with inspiration from a lot of other people like Joe Greer and Daniel Arnold and Photo Dre, and street photographers, old classic ones like Vivian Maier and Jeff Marmelstein, people that really used film photography to create a lot of emotion in their work. I also got a lot of inspiration from Nirav Patel, who I was really fortunate to shoot alongside in 2017 in Yosemite. He was on photography, I was on video, and it was awesome to actually see him work in real life. But he's always capturing so much emotion and a cinematic feel that so many other photographers don't, especially in his portraiture work with models. And then also I learned a lot from Kristen Marie Parker at a workshop called Workshop, where she really dove into the thought and idea of it being okay to be an introverted photographer and expressing your art through kind of your personality. You don't have to be someone who's always eliciting so much emotion and fun and excitement and joy and craziness, but rather sort of a more quiet approach of intimacy and not so loud and appealing to a demographic of clients that might be interested in that. So pulling from all these sources of inspiration, there's those and many others. You know, I follow running channels on YouTube like Seth James Damore and Kofuzi, and I love listening to music from artists like Pogo or Bleachers or Bon Iver, and putting that music on while I brainstorm and kind of just colliding all of these inspirational things in my head and getting them into my brain while I'm writing these ideas down, and sort of letting all of those sources of inspiration manifest themselves in my own creative voice. Because ultimately that's what creativity is all about. Creativity isn't just you thinking of ideas from nothing, but it's rather taking sources of inspiration and smashing them all together to create your own creative voice. So after you've written down your creative ideas on paper or your iPad or wherever, try to revisit those ideas before you go on a shoot. Recently, I was introduced to an app called Unscripted, and I used them in my engagement session video I posted a few months ago with Max and Michelle. On Unscripted, there are all sorts of prompts and ways to get creative within a photo shoot, but I like to take it even a step further with this whole idea of thinking and brainstorming before you actually go out to a shoot. I like using Unscripted in a way where I look at the posing and I look at all the inspiration that's within that app, and I like applying different parts of that inspiration into shoots that I want to do in the future. So at this point, Unscripted's like a full-blown CRM where you can plan all of your shoots, you can make contracts, send invoices, do questionnaires with your clients, like all of the organizational things you need as a photographer, but I really want to focus on how it can help you with creative portraiture. Because if you take that list of things that you thought of in your creative space and creative time and you apply it to specific shoots that you have in your calendar, you are going to be set up so much better for hitting those creative things and accomplishing those creative tasks while you're in the field. So instead of actually having to use creative energy while you're shooting, you can consistently refer to that app and look at the things that you wrote down and found inspiration from within the app and focus on fundamental photography things in the field, like composition and lighting and exposure, and making sure those things are solid while the creative piece is just what you've pulled from in your brainstorm session. So Unscripted is an incredible place where you can bring all those ideas into one specific place every single shoot. And then on top of that, every shoot you can look at the weather and what it's going to be like during blue hour and golden hour and when the sun rises and sun sets. It's just kind of a one-stop shop for all the things that you might need. So go ahead and check them out. The link is in the description. I'm going to be using them this entire year for planning out all of my shoots and making sure I'm executing all of my creative ideas that I brainstorm throughout the year. Thanks for sponsoring this video, Unscripted. I really appreciate you and supporting my channel and the things that I do, and I hope that you guys appreciate them too. Here's some examples of ideas that I wrote down and planned for and was actually able to execute because I thought of them beforehand. Like I had mentioned, Max and Michelle, the last Unscripted video we did was an engagement session. They were already married, but we just did this portrait session where I found inspiration from different posing within the Unscripted app. And I was able to get things like a really cool double exposure with the city background, shooting from an upward angle, shooting minimalist photos, and finishing a roll of film on Cinestill that day, which ended up just really cool. The colors and pastel looking colors was great. Honestly, one of the coolest sets of portraiture I've done in a long time. So it was just so, and it was freezing that day. It was so uncomfortable to shoot. So in that moment, it was really cool to see that I had a list of things I could go off of and not feel the pressure of having to perform creatively because I already had all those ideas in mind. Blakely and Matt, I had always wanted to do a sunrise first look with a wedding couple if the opportunity presented itself. So when Blakely and Matt told me that they were doing a courthouse ceremony at 9 a.m. On their wedding day, I thought, why don't we go out to the lake that faced east for sunrise? Would you guys be open to that? So they got up super early and we got all these unbelievable frames of the sun rising with their first look and exchanging letters with each other. I also thought beforehand of dragging the shutter with different photos that day, and so I got this amazing couple of portraits after their ceremony in the city with a bus going by and people walking past them. Megan and Michael did a small elopement in Colorado where they rented out a cabin. We actually collaborated on booking that space because it was just like dark and moody and they really wanted to do some portraits and reading letters in front of the fire. But before we did that, we set up some constant lights and thought beforehand, maybe we can just do a one source constant light for some portraits in that dark and moody space, and just got some epic stuff in there. Living past 27. This is one I did very recently. I brought my new Hasselblad 500cm 6x6 medium format camera that was a mouthful, to an engagement session with Julian and Catherine, and I got these portraits that I just they are compositions that I would normally do digitally, but just the character that came out of that camera and shooting film and a vintage lens, like the way the lights bloomed in this portrait and the way that just the color looks in this one and the dynamic range, it's just so different, especially the 6x6 crop as well. And there were a few happy accidents in there with me because I processed this film and I screwed up rolling it into the reel, but you get these happy accidents with these flares that are really cool too. I'm not sure, it might just be that camera has a light leak in the back. I have to check it out, but still, nonetheless, it's very different than something I would have made with a digital camera. And then finally, shooting for dynamic range, not blowing out the highlights. I was very intentional with some of these portraits I did with Austin and Jenna and trying to get that cinematic look in the portraiture, much like Nirav Patel does, like I mentioned in the beginning. And even going as far in post to crop some of those to a 2.39:1 aspect ratio to get that cinematic look as if you're looking at a Hollywood film and looking at a still from a Hollywood film. These are just a few small examples of how I was able to think beforehand on shoots this past calendar year, and will continue to do for the rest of my career in photography, because it's just always something that's getting me excited about portraiture and taking my stuff to the next level. And the more and more I compound these ideas, the more and more I'm thinking about these things, the more and more these ideas just keep coming to me and coming out of my head, coming to my mind, my brain space, to have them in the forefront of my brain when I'm presented an opportunity on a shoot. So I just can't recommend it enough to write down those ideas and create and carve out space to do that. And whatever it is that you do it with intentionality and do it with diligence, and just keep honing all of those skills and creative ideas into your own voice so that you can, like I always say, lean into what makes you different. I think that's one of the most important things in finding success as an artist, is just to find that creative voice and just keep leaning into those things that you find to be yourself. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this video, is helpful to you at all, please make sure to like it. That helps me and my channel out here. Subscribe for more videos like this to help you with your portraiture, with your filmmaking, all that good stuff. I'll see you soon. Thank you. Goodbye. Also, this is a corner of my new studio, and this entire room is a hot garbage of a mess, but you will see more stuff soon about all the cool things we have planned in this space. Get pumped. Bye.